Emily Dawson was 20 years old now, a woman stepping into adulthood with a quiet determination forged in the fires of her turbulent childhood. Her story, though riddled with hardship, was one of resilience and self-discovery. Born to a loving mother who was taken far too soon by cancer when Emily was just 10 years old, she found herself thrust into a family dynamic that was anything but nurturing. After her mother's passing, Emily's life took a sharp turn. Her father, Robert, remarried within a year, introducing a stepmother into their lives. With the new marriage came a new addition to the family, John, her younger stepbrother, who quickly became the center of attention. Robert, once a man who doted on his daughter, became a shadow of his former self, cold, dismissive, and utterly captivated by his new wife and son. Emily quickly fell into the role of an unwanted outsider in her own home. While her stepmother lavished affection and praise on John, Emily was relegated to the background, her presence acknowledged only when there was work to be done. By the time she was 11, Emily was essentially the family maid. She cleaned the house, cooked meals, and took care of John, all while struggling to keep up with her schoolwork. Her father's indifference cut the deepest. Once a source of comfort, he now barely looked at her. Every small achievement Emily managed to earn was ignored, while John was celebrated for the smallest accomplishment. When John brought home a B on a test, the family went out for ice cream. When Emily scored straight A's, no one even noticed. The unfairness of it all could have embittered Emily, but instead it planted a seed of determination. By the time she turned 16, she had resolved to escape. She studied relentlessly, worked part-time jobs to save money, and dreamed of the day she could finally leave. At 18, she secured a scholarship to a university 3 states away and left her childhood home without a single glance back. For the first time in her life, Emily was free. College was her sanctuary, a place where she could rebuild herself and learn who she truly was. She discovered a love for photography, turning her passion into a successful freelance career. By 20, Emily had built a life filled with supportive friends, creative work, and a quiet contentment that she had never known growing up. It was a bright Saturday morning when her phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. Emily hesitated before answering, her heart sinking as a familiar voice filled the line. It was her father. "Emily," he began, his tone uncharacteristically soft, almost pleading. "It's been a long time." Emily's chest tightened. She hadn't spoken to her family in 2 years, a deliberate choice to protect the life she had painstakingly built. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions swirling within her. There was a pause, then a heavy sigh. "We need your help," Robert admitted. "Your brother, he left us. Took all his things and just walked out. We're in a tough spot now. We've lost the house, and we don't even have enough for rent. I thought maybe you could help us out, just until we get back on our feet." Emily's mind raced. The audacity of the request stunned her. This was the same family that had treated her as nothing more than a servant, the same father who had turned a blind eye to her struggles. Now, they needed her. "Let me get this straight," Emily said, her voice icy. "You ignored me for years, treated me like I didn't matter. And now that John isn't around to worship, you expect me to step in and save you." Her father stammered, trying to explain, but Emily cut him off. "No," she said firmly. "I'm not your safety net. You made your choices, and now you can deal with the consequences." She hung up, her hands trembling with a mix of anger and liberation. For years, she had carried the weight of her family's neglect, but now she realized she didn't have to. That evening, Emily met up with her friends, a close-knit group who had become her chosen family. Over laughter and shared stories, she felt the last remnants of guilt fade away. She had made the right decision, choosing herself for the first time. As the weeks passed, Emily found herself more at peace than ever. She threw herself into her photography, capturing the beauty of the world around her. One day, while snapping photos at a park, she came across a young girl who reminded her of herself. A quiet, thoughtful child with a spark of resilience in her eyes. Emily knelt beside the girl and showed her how to use the camera. The girl's face lit up, and for a moment, Emily saw a reflection of her own journey, from a silenced, overlooked child to a woman who had reclaimed her voice and her life. Emily had barely set the phone down when the weight of what just happened hit her. She leaned against the kitchen counter, staring blankly at the floor, her breath shallow. Her father's voice, pleading and full of false regret, echoed in her mind. "We need your help, Emily." Those words were like a slap across her face, sharp and unforgiving. How could they? After all these years, after everything they'd put her through, how could they now come crawling back, asking her for anything? A wave of anger surged within her, and she slammed her fist against the countertop. How dare they think she'd just step in and save them? How dare they even think she owed them anything after the way they treated her? The way they had abandoned her the second John was born. But beneath the anger, there was something else. A soft, nagging voice that tugged at her chest, the same voice that had haunted her since childhood, the voice of guilt. What if they really needed her? What if they were suffering? What if her father, so distant and harsh, had finally realized how badly he'd messed up? The thoughts swirled together in a confusing storm. She felt torn in two, her heart aching with old wounds, and yet, at the same time, a part of her couldn't escape the instinct to help. The same instinct that had driven her as a child to try and earn her father's love. The same instinct that had made her quietly endure years of being treated as nothing more than the family servant. The phone call had stirred up memories she had long buried, memories of long nights spent cleaning the house while John played video games, of being called lazy when she didn't finish her chores fast enough, of sitting at the dinner table with her family, her stomach hollow from hunger, while John ate to his heart's content, praised for his every move. Emily had always believed that if only she tried harder, if only she worked harder, her father would notice her. But he never did. Instead, he showered John with affection, praised him for his smallest accomplishments, while Emily was overlooked, left in the shadows. She had been invisible, except when it came to taking on the endless work no one else would do. Now, with the years between her and that life, she was supposed to forgive them, to throw aside all that anger, all that pain, and come to their rescue. Her phone buzzed again. It was her father, calling again. Emily stared at the screen, a deep hesitation flooding her veins. Her fingers hovered over the call button, and for a moment she almost picked it up, almost gave in. But then she remembered the look on her father's face the last time she saw him, cold, distant, like she was nothing more than a background character in his life. She remembered how he had always been too absorbed in his own problems to notice hers. He hadn't once thought about how it felt to be neglected in favor of John. He hadn't once considered how it felt to be constantly overlooked and underappreciated. Another buzz from her phone broke her thoughts. This time it was a text message from her father. "Please, Emily, we're desperate. I know things haven't been perfect between us, but we're family. We can't do this without you." The words hit her like a physical blow. Desperate. Family. The very same words her father had used so many times, twisting them into guilt-laden pleas whenever he wanted something. She could almost hear his voice behind the text, the same manipulative tone that had always convinced her to keep quiet, to keep giving. And that's when it clicked. He didn't care about her. He cared about what she could provide for him. She squeezed her eyes shut, trying to keep the tears at bay. A lump formed in her throat as the guilt started to creep in once more. Wasn't it her responsibility to help them? Wasn't it what good daughters did? Didn't she owe them some form of compassion, despite everything? But the truth stung. Emily wasn't a child anymore. She had her own life now, her own path. She had worked so hard to get to this point, and she wasn't about to let the toxic remnants of her family drag her back into that dark place. She had built a life for herself, and it wasn't up to her to fix the mess they had made. The emotions warring inside her became almost unbearable. She wanted to help. She wanted to be the kind of person who forgave easily, who understood that people made mistakes. She wanted to believe her father could change, but she knew, deep down, that if she gave in now, she would only be repeating the same cycle of neglect, the same cycle of being taken for granted. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from John. "Hey, Em. I know Dad's been asking you for money. He's just freaking out because of everything that happened with me. But I think he needs you. We both do. Please just think about it. I know things were rough before, but we're family, right? Family." The word reverberated in her mind, an echo of all the broken promises and empty words she had heard throughout her childhood. Emily stared at the message for a long moment, her heart hammering in her chest. She felt a mixture of anger at John, who had always been the golden child, who had never lifted a finger to help, and sadness, knowing that despite everything he was still under the influence of their father. She let out a long breath and locked her phone, pushing it away from her. The guilt felt overwhelming, suffocating. But she couldn't let it control her. Not anymore. She stood up, walking to the window, looking out at the world beyond. Her life was different now. She wasn't that helpless girl anymore. She had built something meaningful, something real. And if she let her family back in, it would tear that apart. She had to let go. She had to refuse. For her own peace. For her own freedom. The anger, the guilt, they didn't belong to her anymore. They were their burdens to carry. She had carried them for too long. It was time for her to live her life on her own terms. With a steady hand, she sent one final text to her father. "I'm sorry, but I can't help. I've moved on from that life, and I won't be dragged back into it." She hit send, then sat down on the couch, her body heavy but relieved. There was no turning back now. The decision was made. She had chosen herself. And for the first time in her life, Emily felt the weight of her family's manipulation finally lift. The phone call came later that evening, just as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a soft golden hue across her apartment. Emily stared at the screen. It was her father again. This time, there was a sense of finality in her chest. She wasn't going to keep going through the same cycle of guilt and anger anymore. Taking a deep breath, Emily picked up the phone. "Emily," her father's voice was softer this time, almost pleading. "I know you're upset, I really do. But we're in a tough spot here. Your brother's gone, and we, your stepmother and I, we don't have anyone else to turn to." The weight of his words hung in the air. Emily's mind screamed at her to hang up, but she stayed still, her finger resting over the end call button. She wasn't going to let him drag her back into the past. Not this time. "Dad," Emily began, her voice steady and calm. "You know, I've been thinking about this all day. You've called me all these years the way you always do, expecting me to come to the rescue. And for a moment, I almost considered it. Almost." There was silence on the other end. She could hear the slight quiver in her father's breath, a hint of desperation. "Please, Em, I'm asking for your help. Just this once." "No," Emily cut him off, the word as final as a door slamming shut. "I won't do it, Dad. I won't help. Not this time." "Don't you care about your family?" His voice cracked, but Emily wasn't fooled. She wasn't going to let him manipulate her with guilt anymore. The emotional strings he had pulled for so long were finally snapped. "I used to care," Emily replied, her voice rising with the truth she had buried deep inside for years. "But what I've realized is that I've been carrying the weight of this family for too long. It's always been about what you need, what John needs. Never once did you stop to ask what I needed." There was a pause, and for a brief second, Emily wondered if her father was finally understanding. But then he spoke again, trying to appeal to her, trying to pull her back into the role he cast her in so many years ago. "You're my daughter, Emily. I didn't always know how to show it, but I need you now. We all need you." "No, you don't need me," Emily said, each word more forceful than the last. "What you need is someone to take care of you, someone to clean up your messes, but that's not me anymore. I've spent my whole life doing that, trying to earn your approval, trying to fix everything. But I'm done." Her father's voice was now laced with frustration. "So what? You're just going to turn your back on us? You'll leave us stranded?" Emily's heart beat hard against her ribs, but she stood her ground, a newfound strength filling her chest. "You had your chance. You had plenty of chances, and every time I tried, you pushed me aside. You treated me like I didn't matter, like I wasn't even your daughter. You chose John over me. You chose your new family over me. And now that it's not going well for you, you want me to bail you out." Her voice broke, but she forced herself to continue. "I don't owe you anything. I don't owe anyone anything. I've built a life for myself, one where I'm valued, one where I matter. I've worked so hard to get here, to heal from everything you and Mom and John put me through, and I'm not going to let you drag me back into that toxic pit." There was a long silence. For the first time in her life, Emily felt a strange sense of peace. She wasn't begging for his approval. She wasn't waiting for him to notice her. She was standing on her own 2 feet, and she was proud of it. Finally, her father spoke again, his voice now empty and hollow. "So that's it? You're just going to walk away from your family?" Emily let out a soft, almost laugh. It wasn't a laugh of joy, but a laugh of bitter realization. "Yeah, Dad. That's it. I'm walking away. I'm walking away from the guilt. from the manipulation, from everything that's kept me tied down to you and your mess. I'm free now. I finally feel free. She took a long breath, feeling the weight of her decision settle into her bones. This was it. There was no turning back. I'm sorry, Dad, but I can't help you. I'm not your safety net anymore. She paused, the finality of her words sinking in. You need to figure it out on your own. With that, she hung up the phone. For a moment, Emily just stood there, staring at the screen. The weight of the decision still hung in the air, but it felt lighter, so much lighter. It wasn't that she didn't care. She did, in some small, quiet way. But she had to protect herself. She had to protect the life she had built. For years, she had been the one to give, to sacrifice, to bend under the weight of everyone else's needs. But not anymore. She wasn't going to be the one to fix their broken pieces while ignoring her own. And as Emily looked out the window, watching the last light of the day fade into night, a soft smile touched her lips. She had done it. She had stood up for herself. She had finally set the boundaries she had so desperately needed.